This video is about the music of Ludwig van Beethoven, one of the greatest composers of all time. First, I'm going to study and analyze his piano sonatas, and with that information, I'm going to attempt to create my own piano sonata in the style of Beethoven. And hopefully in this process, we can all learn about how Beethoven structured his music, some of his compositional elements, and just appreciate his genius. There are three things in particular that I want to focus on. First, the sonata-allegro form, motivic development, and rhetoric. So, sonata-allegro form. To explain this extremely simply, let's imagine three sections. In the first section, let's imagine two shapes of two different colors. Let's say a red triangle and a blue circle. In the second section, these two shapes and these two colors interact with each other in different ways. They get transformed, they get expanded upon, broken up, and they move in many different directions. In the third section, order is restored, and again, we find two shapes, but instead of having two different colors, we'll have both shapes in red. Now, what's interesting is that if you look very carefully, the shapes and colors that you find in the third section are slightly different from that of the first section. And that is because of what they went through in the second section, or the development. Now, motivic development ties into this form here because this is the way that cells or different fragments of melody or rhythm could be expanded upon, transformed, and developed. Now, I also mentioned rhetoric because a lot of Beethoven's phrases are rather speech-like. The way that they interact with each other, how they begin and how they end, how they're strung together, they really follow a lot of the patterns and a lot of the techniques in rhetoric. So the definition of rhetoric, the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Kind of like how there are literary devices that help make speech or text a lot more effective in terms of communication, there are compositional devices that do the same as well, just in musical terms. So in getting to the arrangement, I know that I'm going to be using the sonata-allegro form. I'll have two themes, and I'll of course reference the happy birthday melody. I think the first order of business is to come up with the two themes, and for that, I'm going to start off with Happy Birthday in the key of D minor. From that, I'm going to focus on just the first two pitches because when you pay attention to what Beethoven does, for example, in his Fifth Symphony that we all know, the rest of the entire symphony movement can always be traced back to those opening pitches, which is only two pitches. Of course, the repeated pitch and then a pitch a third below. But really everything stems from that. So in similar fashion, I'm choosing the first two pitches from Happy Birthday in D minor. And instead of having a single line, I think it'll be more interesting in thirds. This is what you call a motive or a motif, basically core material from which a bunch of other phrases, other sections get built from. So in order to build from somewhere, it's great to start with something very small and basic, like two pitches. I purposely made the direction of these gestures opposite from one another. It's almost like a question and an answer in a very micro form. And then there is a longer gesture, so all three components make up a short, short, long phrase. Now onto the second theme. Traditionally, the key of the second theme is related somehow to that of the first. For example, if we're in a major key, the second theme will most likely be in the dominant key, which is the 5. So C major to, say, G major. In the minor keys, most often you'll find the second theme in the relative major, so major 3, or also 5. So with that in mind, my second theme will be in F major, the relative major key to D minor. And I'm going to use this part, or Happy Birthday, dear so-and-so, from the original Happy Birthday melody as melodic material. And I want it to be in contrast to the first theme. Now that I have the main pillars for my sonata, I need to figure out ways to connect the dots and fill in the blanks. So here I have both volumes of the Beethoven sonatas, Volume 1, Volume 2. This happened when I got really frustrated. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure why this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to record as many of these phrases as I can possibly manage right now. And from that, I'm going to compile a list of compositional characteristics that I see of Beethoven's music, especially in his piano sonatas. Repeated chords. More chords. Wide broken chords. Unisons, or two lines spaced an octave apart, playing the same exact line. Hand crossing, specifically this type. Broken octaves. Staggered octaves. Contrast, a lot of contrast. Diminished chords, which you find everywhere, both in chord form and arpeggiated form. Long trills. Imitative layers. Themes with horn calls and horns in general. Inner lines. Extremely warm and beautiful melodies. A lot of times you'll find scales and arpeggios just in their straight form for an entire phrase, either as a single note or in octaves, and a lot of times I think that's kind of hard to pull off, but Beethoven makes it sound pretty emphatic and epic. This is probably the most intense descending minor scale in all of piano repertoire. Declamatory moments, which are also accompanied by rests and bouts of silence. Call and response. Repeated pedal points. Outer pedal lines. So this is sort of the opposite of a pedal point. You'll find a note or an octave surrounding certain chords that are moving that stays the same. Turns. Sequences. Repeated pairs. Oh, that is hard. Oh. Okay, I think that's enough for today. Okay. Now I'm focusing a lot on these two pitches, A and B flat, and specifically the semitone relationship. Another thing I want to mention is the way that I played it, because that's quite important. Say that I played it with a lot more pedal, with a gentler, fuzzier type of sound, it might sound like this. And now again, the way that I played it. So as you can hear, there is a huge difference even though I'm playing the exact same pitches with the exact same rhythm. And in this particular case, I think a term that comes in handy is non-legato, which is kind of halfway between something that is staccato, short and dry, and something that is legato, long, fluid, connected. Of course, there are many other factors and many other things that are involved in the way you play that will make your playing sound more or less Beethoven, but I think that depends on the piece. Now, after a number of drafts and revisions, here is Happy Birthday in the style of Ludwig van Beethoven in honor of his 250th celebration. I'm making additional footage from this project available to my patrons on Patreon, such as a more in-depth analysis of a Beethoven piano sonata, more on how I came up with my own arrangement, and extended versions of some of the examples shown in the video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm not really sure if this is possible. Why do I feel stressed? I feel stressed. Okay.